Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome again to another webinar hosted by Secure Intelligence Limited. My name is Chine. I'm an SDR at CIL, and I want to officially welcome everyone to today's webinar. All right, so before we continue, I'd like to be sure that you all can hear me. So if you can hear me, check below your screen, you will see a reaction icon. So make some reaction. Let me be sure that you can hear me before we proceed. Right, thank you. Okay, so welcome again to another session with Secure Intelligence Limited. Before we go into the webinar proper, I'd like to keep us updated with our housekeeping rules. So first, I would like everyone to understand that this session is being recorded and uploaded on our social media channels. You can check us on YouTube at Secure Intelligence Limited. You can catch up on the replay of this webinar. If you missed any part of the webinar at all, we've got you covered. Okay, so we also want attendees to understand that you can react, you can raise your hands during the presentation, and also, take part in other forms of engagement so that you can get the whole value of this webinar. And lastly, if you have questions during this webinar presentation, be rest assured that all your questions will be attended to. So during the course of the webinar, if you have questions in your heart that you'd like to ask, you have comments you want to make, please use the comments section and Q&A session, which is also below your screen, to drop down your questions so you don't forget. All right, so welcome again. We're so excited to have you. Now, for those of us who are joining this webinar for the very first time, we are Secure Intelligence Limited, all right, and we see ourselves as solution builders. We apply technology to drive effectiveness, agility, and growth for businesses. We are positioned to help you, scale globally in your business. We work with 4 major pillars. That's global mindset, multi-cloud competence, agility, and most importantly, growth for your business. Today promises to be exciting, insightful, and awesome. All right, so our topic for today is cloud security essentials, protecting your cloud resources and data. Now, to take us into this amazing topic for today is a professional cloud engineer who specializes in creating and managing cloud infrastructure such as Amazon S3 Bucket, Amazon Cloud Fonts, and many more. He's also very experienced in managing users and assigning roles with the understanding of least privileged access. Trust me, he's a whole package. So without wasting much of our time, I would like us to go straight into today's webinar. And to take us in today's agenda is no other person than Rahim Olayemi. You're welcome, Rahim. It's great to have you in today's webinar.
Thank you very much, Naye, for that beautiful introduction and presentation. As Naye has rightly mentioned, my name is Rahim Olayemi. I'm a cloud engineer here at Secure Intelligence Limited, where we perform a lot of things, but basically we work with creating pipelines for application developers and backend data engineers to ensure smooth delivery of their application updates into production environments. So basically, without any further ado, we'll be looking at the agenda for today's webinar. So we're looking at understanding what cloud security essentials entails, what is cloud security essentials, looking at the CIA triad. Likewise, we would forge into the components of AWS cloud security services. Then we'll look at the overview of Trend Micro Cloud 1, then a little demonstration of the routine check here in Secure Intelligence Limited. So the cloud platform operations engineering team, what we do in managing our customers' infrastructure. So we perform some routine checks. So show us some of the things we do to do those job. Next slide, please. Okay. So we look at the objectives of the presentation, which is Cloud Security Essentials, protecting your cloud resources and data, which is to cover the fundamental principles of cloud security, including access control, identity and access management, which is basically on authentication of your employees into your environment, and also looking at access control, which is to giving them the required access into your environment, right? So by the principle of least privilege. Likewise, look at encryption so that we can put an extra layer of protection and security into your data and resources that are being hosted in your cloud environment. Likewise, look at threat detection to ensure the safety of our client's cloud operations so that we can prevent vulnerabilities or threats that could take down your systems in minutes, right? So we're able to detect that on time and to perform the necessary remediation to your cloud environment. Next slide, please. Okay, what does cloud security mean, right? So it refers to the foundational principles, practices, and tools necessary to protect data, applications, and services hosted in the cloud, right? So let's leave a cloud security for a moment, right? So as humans, right, so we take security very important, right? So without security, no matter how beautiful a building or an apartment appears to be, or the interior design of a particular flat, right? So without any extra layer of protection or security to that environment, so everything is flawed, right? You are open to attack at any point in time. Now let's switch back into the cloud security. So the security aspect of the cloud, right? So this has to do with we as the clients, as people managing infrastructure in the cloud, right? So we need to put different measures, different procedures, different configurations in mind when creating architectural diagrams and implementing the infrastructure in our cloud to ensure that the data that we are housing in the cloud, it goes in line with confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the cloud resources, right? So our clients are rest assured, right, that everything that has to do with their data and resources are well protected, and people who have malicious intent or those who are unauthorized don't have access to the data, right? So let's look more into the confidentiality, integrity, and availability aspects, right? So confidentiality, right, it means protecting data from unauthorized access and ensuring privacy. So this aspect is something we put into like we see it as very essential. It's something we don't play with, so that our data that we are managed for our clients are private, right? There are a lot of things that some organizations do, or people who don't have vast knowledge of the cloud, right? They start building their infrastructure. Let's say they are using a VPC, for instance. They start putting their workloads in the public subnet, right? So these are some of the things that are bad practices. They are like anti-pattern, right? So one of the things we ensure at every point in time, no matter the workload we are deploying or we are managing for our customers, we ensure, firstly, talking about network aspect, right? So we put their data in a private subnet, right? So we ensure that the data and the resources that are being managed are private, like people from the outside world, right, don't have access into the data. So this talking about the confidentiality aspect. So we ensure the confidentiality of data by doing encryption to protect data, right? So encryption comes in different flavors. So the first one we can look at is symmetric encryption, which has to do with the concept of encrypting your data. So encryption basically means about putting like a layer so that a person who doesn't have access would not be able to translate or to understand what that data is all about. So symmetric encryption basically is about encrypting your data by converting it from human readable wordings into unhuman readable wordings, which is like turning from plain text into ciphertext, right? So symmetric encryption is using just one key to encrypt your data. It's like having just a single key to lock your house, and when you come back, you open your house, like the door of your house, with just that same key. So meaning that key is what you use to secure your environment, your house. Same thing applies to the cloud too. So we also have on the other side asymmetric encryption, so that we have two keys, private key and a public key, in such a way that a key you use to encrypt the data is not what you use to decrypt it. So you have two levels of protection in that aspect. So this encryption is done both at rest and in transit. So at rest basically means when your data are hosted, right, in the cloud environment, right, nobody have access to see it. And even when there's a request and response activity going on while the data is in motion, so your data is also encrypted in transit, right? So we have what we call the TLS and the SSL concepts regarding movement of data. So we also look at access controls and identity management. We talk about multi-factor authentication and role-based access control, so that you can prevent anyone from having access to your data. Let's even say your password gets compromised. However, if you've configured an MFA, right, the person doesn't have your hardware token, right, or your token you've installed on your device, your mobile device or your laptop, right? So that's another extra layer of protection. So on role-based access control, yes, you have been authenticated in the system, right? So everybody authenticated have different level of authorization and permission to carry out the necessary activity in the accounts. So to restrict access to authorized users, basically. So the next slide. Yeah, so before we forge ahead, should in case you have any question, you can put it in the in-call message. So there's an icon that appears like a message tag. So you can input your message there so you won't forget. And when we are done with the webinar, we'll provide the necessary responses to them, right? So integrity is all about ensuring the accuracy and completeness of data and preventing unauthorized alterations, right? So we talked about confidentiality previously, which is to ensure your data is private, right? But that doesn't actually prevent your data not being altered by those who are actually authorized, right? So we put a lot of measures such as checksums, hashes, and digital signatures to detect data tampering, such that the way a data was encrypted, when we want to request for that data, if just one letter was changed from it, we are able to discover that, because the data would not match, right? So we're able to identify that. Then we also implement version control and audit logs to track changes and maintain historical records, so that if there's any reason that your system goes down due to maybe different things that could occur, perhaps the availability zone that your workloads are being hosted goes down, which possible it would happen, or there's a maintenance window on your server, just something just happened after you've made something, so you're able to roll back changes to the previous version before that update was made, right? Next slide, please. Then the final award in the CIA trial is availability, ensuring that data and resources are accessible to authorized users when needed, right? So this is to ensure basically that whenever those who have access to your systems, whenever they need your data, right, your employees, they need the data. The data is always, or should always, be available to them at every point in time. So there shouldn't be any restriction or any prevention from getting access. So look at things that has to do with redundancy of infrastructure, such as load balancing, to prevent single points of failure. So this is another configuration mindset we have here in Secure Intelligence Limited, such that you don't have just one server that caters for your application, that is the business logic, and also the database, everything close. No, we ensure that your data are separated, they are distributed in different availability zones, and not just one server, right? So you could have like 2, 3, 4 servers, so that your load balancer will evenly distribute the requests coming from your clients so that your servers are not overwhelmed. And when your servers are not overwhelmed, it means that your applications are always available, basically. And also, we implement robust disaster recovery and business continuity plans, such that, as I said earlier, if perhaps an availability zone goes down, right, the configuration that must have been configured, if it was configured by experts, would be in such a way that your data would have been replicated to another availability zone, right, or to another region if it's region replication, right, so that your business can always continue to operate, and you don't have any issues sending emails back and forth between you and your clients saying, why is the server down, we are unable to run some transactions and the likes. So we also implement DDoS protection, which is the distributed denial of service protection, such that if you have somebody who has a malicious intent who wants to wreck your server by sending like 1 million requests per second, right? So we're able to detect that on time and to even prevent it from overwhelming your servers. And this is done by regular maintenance, right? That we do and updates to your servers. Right. Should in case you have any question, as I said earlier, you can put it in the e-call message. And if you can also book a one-on-one call with our team of experts in order to take this discussion further, because I know you're already excited that you want us to manage your infrastructure for us here in Secure Intelligence Limited via the Cloud Platform Operations Engineering team. So you can book a one-on-one session. I believe the link has been shared in the in-call message, so you can do that now. So let's look at the components of AWS Cloud Security Services. So we're looking at identity and access management, right? So it talks basically about user authentication and authorization, ensuring that only authorized users have access to specific resources. So yeah, we ensure that we leverage on the best practices in terms of authentication of your users, whether you are using any form of authentication. Maybe you want to link your on-premises data or users into the cloud, right? So we ensure this is seamless, right? So likewise, authorization, yes, you could have been authenticated. You don't give everybody who has been authenticated the same level of permissions privilege. So we give each person what they actually require at every point in time, right? So we also look at multi-factor authentication, which is like adding an extra layer of security beyond passwords. So when we talk about MFA, right, there are like 3 levels to that, which is what you know, like your password, you know your password, right? What you have, which is your hardware token, like a token you have on your hand or you've installed on your device, and what you are, like your fingerprints or your biometrics, maybe your retina was scanned before a particular system is open, right? So these are different levels of multi-factor authentication. So we also look at role-based access control. So assigning permissions based on user roles to minimize access to sensitive data. Yes, as I said earlier, so you give the particular user what they need. And you can also leverage what we call IAM roles, right? Wherein you can limit the amount of time a person who has been authorized to perform a particular duty, let's say 1 hour. So once that 1 hour elapses, the person is logged out of the system, despite the fact the person is authorized, by the way. So you can leverage all of these things using the AWS IAM system. The next slide, please. Right. So we look at the data protection. So we look at encryption, data both at rest and in transit to protect it from unauthorized access, as I said earlier. So, which is the fact that when your data are hosted, right, in your system, they are encrypted. And when they are in motion, they are also encrypted. So nobody has any access to view the data of your customers at any point in time. So you are rest assured that the data of your customers are safe and in safe hands. So also look at data loss prevention so that you implement policies like within the cloud service provider and technologies to prevent data leakage. So we leverage things like ABS volume encryption, AWS key management service. We also look at AWS backup. So we are constantly backing up your data. So anything can happen at any point in time. Perhaps it could be from your own end, wherein we've experienced this right before, so that some employees upload some data from their end that has been corrupted, that has some malware in such a file, right? So we're able to detect it. Maybe the server goes down, we can easily roll back to the previous version that has been backed up in AWS backup, right? Next slide, please. Right. So as I said earlier, you can send in your questions in the in-call message. So when we are done with the webinar, would give the appropriate response. Right. So look at another aspect of the component of AWS security, cloud security. So we look at firewalls and VPNs. So we can protect our cloud resources from unauthorized access and ensuring secure communication channels, such as VPC security groups, which actually protect, is that a layer around your instances, right? Your elastic network interface, right? And also we have another layer that protects your subnets that the network access control list. So different levels of security at every point in time. This is network level now. So we ensure that your system are well protected. I also look at the IDPS, the intrusion detection and prevention systems, so that we are constantly monitoring network traffic for suspicious activities and blocking potential threats. So what network traffic is talking about basically is about the request to response of your data packet, how your users are sending requests to get some information from your resources, and how that server and in your workload is responding to your users. So we are constantly checking. We leverage on AWS Firewall Manager, Inspector, Detective, Guard Duty, Security Hub, and others around the cloud security services. The next slide, please. Right. So we look at compliance and legal, right? So this has to do with the fact that we ensure that your the way we manage your data, right, they go in line with the laws and regulations of where those data are being hosted, right? So we look at GDPR, which is General Data Protection Regulation, and this is a regulation law that was enacted in the EU, European Union, to ensure that all the data that are being hosted within the EU region follow a particular procedure, right? Even if that company itself is not hosted, is not living in the EU region, as long as the data they are managing is within that region. So the GDPR comes for that. And likewise, we have the IPA, which is the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, which has to do with the way customers' PHI, which is the protected health information, how they are in safe hands, right? So that the delicate data of our customers, right, are in safe hands and they are not released to the public. They are not sold in any way and form. And likewise, look at the CCPA, which is the California Customer Privacy Act. So perhaps we have some of our clients who are residing in California districts, so we can actually have a system ensuring that the data we are managing for our customers in that region, in that locality, goes in line with the procedures that the law regulatory body has made in that region. So also look at auditing and reporting, which has to do with maintaining logs and audit trails to monitor access and changes to cloud resources. So we can actually look at how the APIs, like how things are being calling themselves in your AWS accounts. So we can actually track who does this, who does that in your AWS accounts, and we leverage on the AWS CloudTrail logs for that. Next slide, please. Right. So before forge ahead, so should in case you want to book a one-on-one call with our team of experts, right, you can check the in-call message that has been shared there. So you can take the discussion further away from this place, so that we in the cloud platforms operation engineering team, we can properly manage your systems for you, right? So let's look at configuration management. So we ensure that your system is securely configured by following best practices, right? So we leverage on regularly updating and patching systems to protect against vulnerabilities. We also leverage on application vulnerability management, regularly scanning and patching application vulnerabilities. So we leverage on Trend Micro Cloud One conformity, as we'll see very soon, AWS Systems Manager, Patch Manager. So these components, right, these tools, they perform what we just mentioned here regarding the configuration management. We are going to see it very soon in a couple of slides. Next slide, please. Right, so we look at endpoint security, so which is ensuring that devices accessing cloud resources are secure, right? I also look at anti-malware, such that you are protecting endpoints from malicious software. So endpoints, basically in this aspect, you're talking about the servers, basically, the servers hosting our workloads, our applications, our databases, right? So we ensure that these servers are protected from malicious software. And we leverage on Trend Micro Cloud One endpoint and workload security components. We'll see that very soon. Now, the next slide, please. Right, so this is an overview of Trend Micro Cloud One, right? So we have different components. So there are about 7. So in this slide here, we have 4. We have the endpoint and workload security. We have application security. We have network security. Then we have file storage security. So for endpoint and workload security, as I just said right now, so we constantly look at our servers, how they are faring. Are they healthy? Is there anything that is flagged as critical or something being alerted, right? So we have different components within this infrastructure, endpoint and workload security, so that we have alert status, we have firewall, we have different security measures that have been implemented in the network. So we're able to check different metrics within that framework to ensure that our systems are up and running. And should in case we have any form of threats, any severity that is critical, instantly we raise a ticket and we start working on it to prevent any form of threat from the outside world. So we also have application security, which is about protecting our APIs and serverless. So serverless is basically about having different microservices communicating with themselves, right? So we are ensuring that as this communication are happening, these communication are well protected, are well secure, right? So that we don't have any form of the microservice that is exposed to bad actors that could leverage any of those components to wreck our systems. We also have network security, and we mentioned earlier about the IDPS, right? So which is the intrusion detection and prevention system. So we can constantly check our network, right? The network infrastructure we've already created, the VPCs, the subnets. Do we have any VPC peering? Do we have any communication from our on-premises to the cloud, right? So we check all of these things constantly. So, and before we proceed, right, this is not limited to any particular cloud service provider, whether it's AWS, talking about the EC2 servers, or we're talking about the Microsoft Azure, we're talking about app services, virtual machines, and all of these things. We're talking about the Google Cloud Platform, that's the Google Compute Engine. So all of these things are well taken care of within Trend Micro Cloud One. So we shouldn't see it as if, or maybe we are talking about AWS here. No, it applies to every cloud service provider that Trend Micro Cloud One has integrated in their system. So moving forward, we look at file storage security, which is where we have different servers communicating to a particular file system, such as the EFS, right? So that different servers can communicate or can share the same file by having the proper integration or configuration to a file system. So this file storage security checks for any form of threats from the file system configuration or even the files that are uploaded in that system to constantly check if it's secure. Right, next slide, please. So we have an overview, or the second overview of Trend Micro Cloud, which is container security, conformity, and open source security by Sneak. So container security basically is about should in case our workload is hosted, maybe we are leveraging Docker, we are leveraging Kubernetes, or we are using cloud native services on AWS like ECS, EKS, right? So container security component in Trine Micro, it caters for that. It's constantly check the configuration in our containers systems, the clusters, the pods, the containers, right? So you constantly check everything to ensure that everything is properly secure. And on the aspect of conformity, right, we are looking at how well architected our systems are at every point in time. So when we're talking about well architected framework, we're looking at reliability, we're looking at cost optimization, looking at operational excellence, looking at performance efficiency, and we look at sustainability to ensure that our systems fulfill the necessary configuration. So if there's any aspect that is falling short, you are able to find ways to improve it without you yourself knowing, right? So we do this constantly, and we're able to check that configuration via the conformity. Likewise, we have the open source security by Snyk. So as we all know that there's no way products in our modern world right now will be created without leveraging open source systems, such as GitHub, where we have maybe different ways to call APIs for different systems, right? So we leverage open source, right? So this Snyk constantly check our systems, should in case there's any way that the malicious attacker could want to enter into our system via the open source systems. So Snyk does that for us. So before we proceed, I would like to bring Naye back to kind of give us one or two things regarding our booking on with our Secure Intelligence Limited experts. Over to you, Naye.
Thank you, Rahim. Okay, so before we continue shortly, I'd like to inform everyone that, if you require further assistance with your cloud platform operations or your cloud infrastructure in general, okay, I'm seeing some reactions. Thank you, guys. Okay, so you can book a free consultation. The consultation is just free, and I sent the link to the Q&A session, but I'll resend it again. Okay, so feel free, book a session. You want to also get more clarity concerning this particular webinar, please do not hesitate to click on the link, book a consultation with our team of experts, and you will get attended to. So if you need support with your cloud infrastructure, you need monitoring, and also if you're a company that you do not have a team of engineers, do not be afraid. Okay, we've got you covered here at CIL. All right, so we would help you manage your cloud infrastructure, and business will go well. Okay, so please click on the link and book a consultation with us. It's absolutely free. All right, thank you, Rahim. Over to you.
Okay, thank you, Naye, for that presentation. Right, so from here, I want to show us like a sneak peek of what we do as cloud platforms operation engineers by performing routine check on our client workload to ensure that the systems are well protected at every point in time. So I'll show us like a few things that we do to check our system. So I'll be sharing my screen in a bit. Okay, so one of the things or one of the places we check is AWS Security Hub, right? So we come here to check how secure our systems are. So here is our sandbox account. So here we come here to play a lot. Like we try to build things, we break things before applying those things in our client workload, right? So don't be rest assured that everything here is just for tests, right? So if you see some things failing, it's fine. It's not a customer's workload, it's our sandbox account here in Secure Intelligence Limited, right? So we can find here security score 68%, showing us how secure our environment is, right? So we have different metrics displayed to us here. We have assets with most findings. We can check across resources, across accounts, across applications. Okay, let me log into the account again. So this, what is happening right now is what I said earlier regarding we are having role-based access control, where you can limit the time somebody is working in your account. So we have it configured in our own system. So I'll be logging in right now, and go back to security up. Okay, while that is loading, let me come to, okay, still loading. Okay, let me come to Trend Micro then. Okay, so it has loaded now. So let me go back to the accounts. Okay, 1 second. Okay, okay, still loading. Let me come to Trend Micro. So while that is loading, I'll come back there to show us security up. So this is Trend Micro for our own test account. So as I said earlier, we have endpoint and workload security, application security, network security, file storage security, container security, conformity, and open source security by Snake, right? So, okay, let me go back to the security up so I can finish that and come back here. So the account now is displaying security up. Okay. Okay. Since that is taking a little bit of time, let me continue with Trend Micro Cloud One here. So this is the display of what we do. So we come to every day. So the cloud platforms operations engineering thing we do here in secure intelligence. So it's 24/7, right? So it's something that is every time, right? Every time an engineer is on is checking to see that is this system working as it should be, right? So your system is well protected and well monitored, right? So let's show us cloud, the endpoint and workload security. Just see the way it's displayed. So you can see, as I said earlier, this is where we just come and test some things. So here we have the alert status. So you can see different levels, critical, warning. So nothing is there because we have nothing hosted, right? So we have different things, anti-malware event history. We have different configurations. We have integrity monitoring events history and a whole lot, right? Firewall event history, right? So that's that regarding the endpoint and workload security. And we can also look at conformity, which has to do with the well-architected framework we mentioned earlier. So ensuring that our systems are well-architected across different metrics such as security, cost optimization, operational excellence, reliability, performance efficiency, and sustainability. So we can see the icon say improve. Yes, our system, don't forget this is our sandbox. Our system is 70% compliant, cost optimization, 44% compliance, still a long way to go. So we can improve as we move along, right? By communicating with our client, oh, this is what we want to do. Can we go ahead? These are the benefits of doing this. So we can do this every time, right? We are well equipped to do that, right? So let me go back to the security hub I was sharing earlier. So we have different things we can find, assets with the most findings. We can see the applications, we can see across the services that we are hosting, different metrics. You can see findings by region, it's still loading. Yeah, so findings by region, you can see critical, high, medium, low. Don't forget, these are sandbox accounts, so don't feel disturbed that why is it critical. So it's sandbox, as I said, we play a lot here, trying to build some things here. So findings by region, so we only have US is one region enabled. So that's the only region. Yeah. So if you have your workload hosted in more than one regions because of where your customers are living or residing, so you see everything displayed here, right? So we also have most common threat type, right? Still loading. See software vulnerabilities with exploits. So we have different dashboards to see and to constantly check our systems are working. So we have another dashboard showing us new findings over time and a whole lot. So X3 buckets, EC2 instances, Lambda functions, showing us our resource with the most findings, right? Critical, high, medium, low, right? So should in case you want to experience this kind of operational routine check on your system. So you can book a one-on-one session, as we said earlier, so that our team of experts would discuss with you further on how we can make that possible for you. And then finally, we show us AWS Systems Manager. One of the routine checks we also do, we come to compliance, right? Under AWS Systems Manager, compliance, to ensure that our systems are compliant. So as I said earlier, this is our sandbox account. So we have one resource that is compliant. We have 3 non-compliant resources. We have 1 critical. So these are not anything to be bothered about. It's our sandbox account. So we have the resources that has been flagged compliant and 3 that have been flagged non-compliant, right? So we also have one of the things we do or we check here is the patch manager. So patch manager, basically, we are trying to see how our systems are constantly patched from vulnerabilities and threats from any bad actors. So we come here to check, is our systems protected? It's like when we talk about vulnerability, it's like, for instance, where somebody, you locked your door, right? When you came back home, maybe your child went out in the night to do any kind of thing. And when the child came back, he forgot or she forgot to lock the door, like with the key. Yeah, they shut the door, but they didn't lock it. That's a vulnerability that is potential to threat. So we come to patch manager to check our system's compliance. So we have different reports, compliance reports. We have non-compliance counts. So we have nodes with missing patches to show, okay, are there any server that are missing any patching of the vulnerability we just mentioned about? Okay, we have any nodes, any servers that we try to patch them, but it failed due to maybe different issues happening on the server, or we've actually patched the servers, but those servers are pending what reboots, right? That is, we need to restart that server before that patching could be implemented. So these are some of the routine checks we carry out, and there are a lot more that we do to manage our customers' workloads. So as I said earlier, if you want us to manage your systems, kindly book a one-on-one session with our team of experts to take the conversation to that level. Thank you very much. Over to you.
All right. Wow. Thank you so much, Rahim. Okay, let me get some reaction. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Rahim. That was wonderful. It was a great presentation. Okay, so please, if you have questions for Rahim, please send in your questions, type them in the Q&A session, and we'll get them attended to immediately. All right, so I would also want to remind us that there's a link on the Q&A session where you can book a consultation with our team of experts to help you with whatever challenge you're having, or even your cloud platform operations, your cloud infrastructure. Okay, so Rahim, there's a question here for you. Okay. What are the key best practices for implementing effective access controls in cloud environments to ensure the security of sensitive data and resources? I don't know if you got the question.
I got that clearly. So basically, when we talk about access controls, so we must have talked about authentication of your users, right? Then we must have talked about authorization of your users. So access controls basically means giving every user the required access or permissions they need to perform their duty, right? And also to limit the amount of access at every point in time, such as leveraging on IAM roles, and you limit the amount of time, such as if you are, let's say you want to share a data like an S3 bucket, you want it to be accessed by people from the outside world, right? So there are different metrics you can leverage on, such as using pre-signed URLs, so that anyone who has access, only anyone that has access to that pre-signed URL will be able to view the data. Right. Anyone who doesn't have access to that pre-signed URL, even though the person has the S3 bucket or the object URL, would not be able to have access to that data, right? So different ways of doing that. We can also talk about CloudFront pre-signed URLs too. So such that you can only have access to your websites that are hosted via S3 buckets only through the CloudFront pre-signed URLs. So these are different access controls configuration we can leverage on in AWS.
All right, thank you so much, Rahim. I think the question was well answered. All right, but there's another question here for you. It says, what are the most common security threats to cloud environments and how can they be mitigated?
Right. So one of the common, as the word states common, so it's something you call the CVEs, right? Common vulnerabilities and exposures. So we have some of the AWS services that flag things like this, such as security of inspector. So we're able to flag it, and different ways to remediate, because there's no one size fits all to solving a particular issue, right? So a way to do that is, if a server has been flagged based on CVE, right, the first thing we do is trying to patch the server, right? Even perhaps maybe the server has been configured to have automated patching. However, maybe when the CVE was discovered was after the server must have been patched, right? So we run like an instance patching at the go to ensure that the system is patched. If that works, fine. If that doesn't work, we find different scripts we can run to ensure the system is fine. And if we run through different things to ensure that it didn't work, then we reach out to, let's say, in AWS support team, we raise a ticket. We've tried all possible means of ensuring that the vulnerabilities has been removed, right? So they will now further guide us. Maybe they will recommend some of their security op team or the inspector team that would have a conversation with us on how we can go about remediating the common vulnerabilities or exposures on our systems.
Okay, thank you so much. I believe that one was also well detailed. Thank you, Rahim, for your wonderful and insightful presentation. Okay, so I am not seeing any other question for now. I think that's all. But I also want to encourage us to book a free consultation. If you need support with your cloud infrastructure, whatever you have questions, even relating to this webinar, that you feel like you want to get more, information, please do not hesitate. The link is there for you. You can book a consultation and we're right there to serve you. All right. So you can also check us on different social media accounts. On Instagram, we are CIL_teams. LinkedIn, you can check us out at Secure Intelligence Together. Okay. Twitter, we're at CIL_teams. Facebook at CIL Teams. And then YouTube, just type in Secure Intelligence Limited, and then you'd see our page. So when you see that, do not hesitate to also follow, and you could also put on your notification icon so you get, updates as to when we have upcoming webinars, and also stay updated with more information from Secure Intelligence, because we have a lot for you and we have a lot to give to you. All right, so I want to say thank you again, Rahim, and thank you everyone for joining today's webinar and staying through to this point. You're the real MVPs. Thank you once again, and see you some other time.